Hi everyone, here's a look at Suzuka in the Formula 3. This one falls under the category of better late than never, but hopefully it's still useful to someone. Get a clean exit out of the final chicane. It's very tempting to try and aggressively attack it at the start of the lap, but realistically you just need to sort of get to the second apex with a bit of momentum and cleanly drive out it. There's no need to be hyper aggressive. You can only lose time if you spin the rear wheels up. Now into one, a lot of drivers like to take a fairly early entry into that apex. I don't. I like to kind of run the car in the middle of the track through the first section of the corner, just easing it on the throttle and the brakes a little bit, and you go down 2 gears. And getting the second apex is the most important thing here. You really have to get it in and clip this inside apex. If you miss it, you're in trouble. And after you get it, you can accelerate out. So what I tend to do is, if anything, you're a little bit tentative into the first corner, you're not quite pushing aggressively, you're just kind of lining the car up to get a good exit out of the first apex of the double corner and meet that second apex. Now this gives me a nice wide entry, and I can get the curb and accelerate hard out. Now here's probably the best section of corners in iRacing, or maybe in the world. You accelerate full throttle into this turn. I'm not lifting at all, which of course depends on your set. I've been running mostly full wing on this car, or at least very high downforce, and just sort of tuning it around my driving style to be very fast in the corners. And I'm turning in here full throttle. Now through this section you don't want to over push it. It's very important to make the apex but not to push past it. The second you start to carry too much speed in understeering wide, you kind of get out of the rhythm because one corner meets the next and meets the next, and when you're having to bring the car back, you're pretty much out of rhythm through the whole series of corners, and it takes you up until like turn 6 or 7 before you can actually get the car back online again. So we're clipping that inside apex, not going too far wide, sort of 2/3 of the track, and you're having to make sure you get back and I can get a tight left-hand apex here. Now I'm just modulating the throttle to control the understeer. Keeping tight through here, but not getting too much up on the curb. So you want to kind of get close to it, basically run across that white line, maybe on the curb a little bit, because if you get on the curb it starts to oscillate the car, and that can just make it skip at the front just the tiniest bit. And then you want to enter from about mid-track, and you can hold it flat, bring it into this inside curb here, and push the car out wide, and then bring it straight back left to minimize track distance. You want to hug the left line through this section of corners. Now, in a car like this is a fantastic section. It's just pushing uphill aggressively. I'm letting it bounce in the rev limit a little bit as opposed to upshifting. Just great series of corners. Now, hugging left again. Now we're coming up to, and I'm braking roughly around the 50 meter marker, maybe a little bit after it, and down 1 gear. Now you're wanting to get very close to that apex, basically just brush the inside of the curb. If you hit it in this car, it tends to spin it, so don't do that. And the same here. Now I'm braking reasonably lightly. You're wanting to clip the curb around there where it's black, don't go too far up on it. And accelerate hard out. If you get out too far on that outside curb, it catches it. But in this case it didn't, so that was good. Now through here, you're braking in between the poles, before this pole but after the other one, and you're wanting to brake the car straight and down in a second. So braking it in a straight line to not lock up. I'm going for a late apex, so I'm turning it in. You're trailing it a little bit but not too much, and I'm wanting to hit the curb around here and then get the car straight as I'm easing the throttle on, and the car by the time you go full throttle is mostly straight. There we go. And that'll give it a nice drive out. A lot of people through here, they like to take a more early apex, they like to brake a bit earlier and clip it in here. But I tend to find that when you're trying to get back on the throttle, the car's just got a bit too much rotation in it, so it tends to lose traction on exit. If you bring it around to a late apex and I guess V the corner off, you can just sort of slingshot it out, which gives you a good run down this straight. Down one gear on entry to spoon, and you want to get the first apex here, and then push the car right out, but not too far. You have to pretty much stop it on the curb. Now in the middle of the corner, just when I'm getting ready, I'm just using some brakes just to steady it a bit, just holding it a little bit. The car's probably moving around a little bit there, and it both stops the oversteer and also corrects the speed for entry. Now into this second apex, you're wanting to make sure you get the inside curb, bring the car in. Now I don't mind lugging it in fourth out of here. I find the car has plenty of power in fourth just to get out, and you don't want to push wide on the outside curb or else that can catch it too. Running confidently through spoon takes a fair bit of practice. You really have to be comfortable to hit both apexes, but also be comfortable how the car's going to move in the middle of the corner, because you've got to let it run right out, and the distance it runs out in the middle of the two apexes kind of depends on how much speed you carry into the first apex. So to get it in a smooth motion of in, clip one apex, run right out to the outside the track, which gives you the narrowest angle of entry into the second apex. It can take some time. And also, if you're running a car that's a bit unsettled, it will move around a lot in the middle of the spoon. So because of that, I would tend to push towards a car that you're comfortable with around here, so that you can be confident if you have to lift or get on the brakes a little bit, it's not just going to rotate on you. Earlier in the week, I was running the cars a bit aggressively to give it maximum turn, but I just went back to the default high downforce and up to the wing a bit on it, and I found that it was just so much more controllable, that you gain just as a driver through here with just the confidence to hold it on the brakes and not worry so much about the rear coming out on the exit of the chicane. The default high downforce with the wings turned up a little bit is actually a really good setup. So I clip both apexes. Just flat down here, nothing interesting. So I'm braking after the 100 meter marker, but before the shadow of the board. I know that you shouldn't use a shadow as a braking marker, but braking after 100. Now, which line you take in here depends on where you want to brake. If you're going to clip the inside of the curb and open the line into the second curb apex, you have to brake a little bit earlier. But if you're not going to clip it and you're going to just go and touch the white line on the side of it, which will give you a wider angle to come back around to get the second apex, and you can brake a bit deeper. I have always preferred to run the car up over the curb. The downside is it unsettles it, and if you get back on the throttle when it's unsettled, it can spin up a bit, particularly since you have to go over one curb then over the next. But the advantage is it really minimises the line, so you don't have to turn it as much in either apex. This is more a personal preference thing. I see a lot of other people not running the curbs, and even in real life, you notice that real life drivers vary it up quite a bit, so it sort of depends what you feel more comfortable doing. So up over one curb, really open the line up in the second curb. Now I get just to turn straight back left again, up over that and accelerate out. It has hopped on that outside curb a little bit, as you tend to there, but it didn't unsettle the car too much, and a good run to the line. That was a 49.3, which is, I think, a pretty competent lap. I've been building up to it. I know it's not the absolute fastest, but I'm getting a little bit more comfortable pushing the car. They look really great coming through the S-bends. They look aggressive and light. And here's the lap. Full speed.